Welcome to Mindfulness Meditation. I'm Michelle. I'd like to begin by reading this poem, and if you have done any amount of meditation or listening to talks or guided meditations or reading about the subject matter, this will be a familiar poem to you. It's called The Guesthouse by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. They may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. In the poem, Rumi talks about the happy things. And of course, most of the time, we're pretty good at welcoming the happy things. Not always, but most of the time. We're not usually very good at welcoming the unhappy things. It can be painful, and nobody wants to feel pain. Also, we're not allowed the space to feel those things because they take real focus. They take real allowing. They require a slowing down. It's not something we can address when we're in the frenetic busyness of our day. They require space. It's a little bit easier to incorporate happiness. Or it's because we enjoy the feeling of that happiness, we're more willing to stop and enjoy it, perhaps. But life is both things, we know that. It's hard to remember that because we live in a culture that I like to call toxic happiness. That there's only room for being really, really happy all the time, to the point that it's, maybe sort of torture. But learning to cultivate the space to allow a welcoming of all experience, whether it's something that's pleasant or unpleasant, whether it's something we want to experience or we don't want to experience. This is really what we're practicing in meditation. We're becoming aware of the experience we're having in any given moment as it is. We practice that on the cushion because it's easier to do it on the cushion. It's still not easy a lot of times. Things will come up, and we still, even when we're giving ourselves the time and space, we'll still, resist it. We'll still not want to face it. Bless you. But it's a safe space for us to do it in. It's a designated time in our day where we're saying to ourselves, I've made this commitment to you. I'm going to listen to you. And this is how I'm doing it. I'm offering you this time, free of any distractions, free of obligations, free of responsibilities. I have this space in my house or in meditation studio. This is for you. And it's an act of compassion toward ourselves, certainly. It's an act of love toward ourselves, a real self-care that is deeper than bubble baths and, vacations and getting drunk on a Friday night. So it is a real opening and allowing. And then there is a process that we can use to cultivate that. Sometimes it's, depending on your personality and how you learn best. If you're a type A personality, having a process that you can actually utilize to develop this sort of awareness is really, really helpful. And it can benefit anybody. But I know in my own experience, having an actual process to follow allowed me to learn to be able to sit. When I first started meditating, I couldn't sit for more than 5 minutes. And now I do about an hour a day. So it's not even really about the time, but it's about that I recognized in the beginning that I was really struggling to do it for any amount of time. So how can I grow that rather than giving up on it, saying, oh, I can't do this. I'm incapable of sitting still and meditating. Everybody is capable of it, I believe. So a process can be really beneficial. And there is a really beautiful practice that one of my teachers, this is where I learned it from. And it's not individual to her. She didn't come up with it, but she took it and kind of tweaked it to her teachings and her experience. But it's really helpful. And you may have heard of it, you may not. It's no big deal. It's called RAIN. It's an acronym that stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. I've changed the investigate to intuit because that piece of the process is really an intuition. It's a really intuitive investigation. And so it's important to understand that we're not engaging the mind, the analytical mind in that, but more opening our intuition to receiving what wisdom can come of that, what's going on there. So we talk a lot about, and in meditations in general, in my classes, the recognize and allow piece we focus a lot on because we can't do anything else until we really can learn to hold that. And that's really important. But moving past that is where we can begin to really learn ourselves, deepen our relationship to ourselves and our needs, and begin to give ourselves what we really need. And out of this, we can begin to really affect change in our lives. And I say it almost every class. I don't feel like there's any point to meditation if you feel great for a half hour in the cushion and then you go out into the real world and you're miserable, or you can't function in your life, or you're just not a nice person. So the skills we're building in meditation are absolutely transferable to outside of into our everyday lives. And that's where we start to see the fruit of the meditation. And we don't see it in a concrete way like we're used to seeing progress, results, right? It's not like that. It's more like we'll be going along our day one day. We're not sure if the meditation has been doing anything for us, but we're still committed to doing it. And then one day we choose to engage in a different way than we have in the past. It becomes almost a different sort of reaction. I don't like to use the word reaction because it's really not awake, but it almost becomes like it changes our habit. Sharon Salzberg, who is a great teacher of loving kindness, it's pretty much what she has focused on since, for decades. And she talks about in her own experiences, she wasn't sure if the practice was working for her. And she has this history of being really hard on herself and being very self-critical. And then one day, many years into practice, she was walking along and dropped something. And she said to herself internally, oh, that's okay. No big deal. And she stopped and realized, oh my God, the practice is working. So that's just an example of how it can be just incorporates itself into us the more we do the practice, whatever the given practice is. So with RAIN, it's really beautiful. We recognize the experience that's happening as it actually is in the moment. And we do that in a somatic way. We're really tapping into what's happening in our body, the sensations within the body, because the body can't be anywhere but in the present. And that is the anchor that keeps us in the present, the signals telling us something. And then we allow the feelings to be there. We allow the experience to be there. It doesn't mean we're happy about it, right? It doesn't mean maybe it's unpleasant and we're like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. We recognize that too. We recognize also that our tendency is that we don't want to deal with it. Okay. But then we make the choice to allow it to be there. That is a true expression of free will. Yes, I recognize this is happening. I also recognize I don't want it, but I'm going to allow myself to feel it anyway. And so we sit with those feelings. And what we often will find, every experience is different. Every person is different. Every time you sit down, if you have this happen, it will be different. But often what you always will find across the board when you allow yourself to stay with the experience is that it changes. And that's really profound. It seems it's obvious, right? We know that intellectually, but we often operate in the world like we don't know that. Oh, this is going to last forever. I'm going to feel like this forever. I feel dread. I feel whatever. So that ultimately, we all learn that. But we learn so much more in the process from the moment that we make the conscious decision to allow whatever it is to exist. Along that road to where we come to the realization that it will change and nothing lasts forever. And why that's a positive thing. There's so many things in the middle that we can learn. So the recognizing and allowing are so important. They're key. They're the first things. And once we begin to get comfortable and we kind of incorporate that process, and we won't always be successful. That's the other thing you have to remember. There will be days when we'll be like, what happened? Where did I go? And then there will be other days where it's like, oh, I was really able to stay present, really able to stay with it. So once we're able to really develop this within ourselves, incorporate it into our everyday lives, incorporate it into our experience, we can begin to start to understand what it is we need. This is like where insight comes in. And my teachings and everything that I've learned is from the Vipassana and insight meditation tradition. And insight, I find, is so important because it helps us learn even more about ourselves and gets past all the layers of how we've been taught to be, peels back all the layers of conditioning. But that is done in a very intuitive way, right? We don't want to sit down and actually analyze it because then we're getting out of our bodies and out of the true experience. And we're starting to put it in the mind, in the analytical mind, where we're starting to create stories around it. So it's not so much that we're asking, why do I do this? But we're allowing our bodies to tell us, our subconscious to tell us what is really behind these things. And then we can move into nurturing. That is giving ourselves what we actually need based on the other three pieces of this. It's a beautiful process. And if you're a person who really learns best from some sort of process, instead of just sitting and seeing what happens, and some people work great that way, this can be a really good kind of a roadmap of how to develop this within ourselves. I have a book out there on the bench written by Tara Brach, and she's written several books, but this one in particular goes really deep into the RAIN practice. She's actually a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist or something like that. So also it's very practical, not one of these just esoteric, kind of philosophical books. It's very practical. And that can be incredibly helpful in our everyday lives because we aren't monastics. We need to know how to still live in our lives. So I encourage you to, if you feel like this is something that resonates with you, check out her book, begin to incorporate the practice in your everyday practice if you feel like it could be beneficial for you. But I like to offer that because I think often we're guided in meditation and talked about in meditation in this very like, I'm going to feel good and have all these blissful states and all of this. And it's not really grounded in practicality. But this practice really offers that, how we can be practical about it and how we can still incorporate into our everyday lives rather than like going off the woo-woo handle, flying off the woo-woo handle. So I have no problem with woo-woo. If you want to be woo-woo, that's fine. But it can also be helpful to know that there are grounded practices that will help us develop these things. So let's go ahead and go into a sit. So I invite you to come to a posture that is supportive for you this morning. allowing yourself to sit balanced and stable, your back upright, your body dignified, but also allowing your muscles to be at ease without over tensing. You're welcome to have your eyes open and a soft gaze a foot or two in front of you, or eyes closed. We'll begin by taking in 3 deep inhales and exhales at your own pace. Breathing deeply from the belly, allowing the breath to really permeate your lungs and your body. And then allow the breath to come into its natural rhythm, not controlling, not forcing, allowing it to move through the body however it would like to move. Becoming aware of the movement of your rib cage as the air rolls through you and out of you. Becoming aware of the movement, maybe subtle, of the shoulders in response to the air, the breath moving through you. Becoming aware of the sensation of the air moving in and out of your nostrils, perhaps the temperature of your nose, or the difference in the temperature of the air as it goes in versus coming out. Just becoming aware of it without focusing too hard on it. Just noticing what it's like, what the experience of bringing the awareness to the nose is. It might be easy to sense the air in some way. You might find it challenging. Whatever that experience is, just give it a name. Pleasant, unpleasant, easy, challenging, cool, warmth, in or out. Whatever neutral words you find to describe the experience. Just allowing the awareness to rest in that experience. If you find it too challenging to find an awareness, an anchor for the awareness in the breath, and allow an anchor within the body to be known, making that the source of the awareness in the body. It could be the feeling of the cushion below your seat. Perhaps you're feeling the feeling of your feet on the floor, the temperature of the room on your skin. Any sensation you find, you can rest your awareness in without too much striving. That also can be your anchor. Allow yourself, as you rest the awareness and the anchor, to also become aware of any tensing you may be holding on to in the body or the face. And if you notice clenching in these areas, any areas of the body or the face, the jaw, the neck, just allow yourself to let it go a little bit. From time to time, your awareness may be taken away from the anchor in the body. When that happens, it's okay. Just recognize that you've left. Give it a neutral label, something like thinking, planning, sound, emotion, whatever it may be. Acknowledge it's there and gently guide the awareness back to the anchor in the body. As you continue to strengthen the anchor, the awareness and the presence, allow yourself to also notice the quality of your presence. Whether you feel a sense of calm as you sit, there's a sense of what comes after this, sense of restlessness, so a subtle sense of frustration, doubt, whatever might be there. It might be very subtle, or maybe nothing at all. So allow that to also come into your awareness as you continue to rest in the anchor. Allowing yourself to continue to rest your awareness in the anchor in the body, while being open to any experience that comes up, recognizing it's there, allowing it to be there without getting caught in the story, and gently bringing the awareness back into the body through the anchor. As we come into the final moments of the meditation, I invite you, if it feels right for you, to place your hand on your chest over your heart and offer yourself gratitude. Gratitude for making space in your day to cultivate a listening and deepening the presence that will enhance your relationship with yourself, knowing that you are worthy of this and deserve it. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be a clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. When you're ready, you're welcome to open your eyes and come into the room.